Hey everyone, welcome to this new training. We are going to dive into how to launch your tech startup without funding. So this is a new topic that we wanted to focus on with this training, first time. And I think it's very relevant because we are currently in a time where the economy is not as good as it could be in most countries. So there's an opportunity there for tech startups to kind of fill the gap and use their creativity to solve problems that are very unique to the situation. But on the other side, we can also see that a lot of startups have some difficulty accessing funding and resources because of this constraint that we are in. It's harder to get investors to commit to new funding rounds and things like that. So tech startups that can utilize the power from within really have a leg up in this situation, and that's what we want to focus on with this training. So let us go ahead and dive in. I wanted to pull up some brief slides real quick, and if you are joining on Facebook or Twitter, or maybe even in our Facebook group, feel free to tag your friends in the comments and click like and add some fun emojis that helps us get the word out there, so as many people as possible can benefit from this training. And and in this session we will focus on utilizing startup secrets to double our chance of success. A little bit of background for myself. I launched my first tech startup in the year 1999, which was right before the tech bubble burst early in 2000, or kind of at the change of the year. So I know what it's like to go through a difficult economic situation. And that was not the only time I was part of a startup launch or startup leadership team during a crisis. That also happened again in 2007, 2008. A little different environment, but still challenging for many startups. So I want to share from these experiences, the things I learned, the mistakes I made, so I can save some of you to make the same mistakes and help you be better positioned for success in this season. Okay, so let's dive in. In this session today, we will cover the top 3 reasons why tech startups fail, so you can avoid failure. We'll also cover the top 3 reasons why they succeed. And then after that, we'll look into unexpected sources for transformational funding. So there are creative options to figure out funding for startups that may not be as obvious. Maybe some of you have already dug into some of those and solved them, but I want to make sure you know all of them that are available. Of course, I'm not claiming that I have all of them listed here in this training, but the ones that I've used personally that I found really valuable, I included. And we can always add more. And if you have any other suggestions, feel free to add that in the comments as well, so other people who watch this later, they can benefit from these options. I think startups are well positioned to, instead of trying to compete with each other, to encourage each other and help each other learn from what they're going through, so we can together make the world a better place. And I think that's the heart of most startups. It's the heart of innovation. Society really needs innovation, and tech startups can provide that in a very unique way, because technology can really automate things that are complicated, that are annoying for people to do. And especially with things like AI and many cloud technology, we can make the lives of people easier and help them enjoy family life more, for example, or whatever they're passionate about. And then the 4th topic we will go over in this session is how to never compete on price again. I'll share more on this later, but this is one of the mistakes that I made with my first startup that kind of limited our growth. And I feel like a lot of startups tend to do this mistake early in their journey. And so I want to give you some tools how you can avoid that and what to do instead to set yourself up for success. And the goal of this training is that if you apply these learnings, the average startup should be able to double their chance of success by the content that we put in the training for day 1, and then for day 2 and 3 on Friday and Saturday. We will probably add additional content that will give you another 25% lift each, 25 to 50. So you can, after this training, you should be able to triple your chance of startup success. It's kind of what we're aiming for. And yeah, always hold us accountable to that. Give us feedback. We want to hear from you. At any time in this training, feel free to put questions in the comments or challenges you're currently facing. And we'll try to address them either in a break of the training or towards the end. And thank you so much for participating. So let's dive into the first section here. Startup secret number 1, why tech startups fail. So number 1 reason is that there's no market need. This may be surprising to many of us because most naturally people think, okay, number 1 reason why startups fail should be because they run out of funding, right? But it's actually not the main reason. The main reason is that they developed something that the market didn't really need, maybe not at the time or not to the level that the startup would have needed to be successful. And that can really be a deal breaker. And this makes it necessary for startups to focus on getting feedback from their ideal customers and from the market as soon as possible, as often as possible. That's why there's such an emphasis on getting an MVP, a minimum viable product, out the door. The sooner the better. It can be an early prototype, doesn't even have to have functionality in the beginning. Just put it in front of a potential customer and have a conversation with them about it. If this solution would actually solve a problem they have, and find out if that's valuable to your potential customer and if they would be willing to pay for that. There are also some cases where customers just find a solution valuable, but they are not willing to pay for it for whatever reason. Reason number 2 why startups fail is running out of cash. That's the one we maybe would have expected in position number 1. And that's, of course, a common reason and something we need to keep an eye out for. And it's also the reason why we focused on addressing that in the training this week. And reason number 3, not having the right team. And this can take on many forms. Maybe it's a co-founded startup where the founders have not really worked together on a similar situation before, don't have a history of working successfully together, which can really be a good determinant of success for the team. And this is also the reason why many investors, before they invest into a startup, they look more at the startup team than they look at the idea and the details of how the team wants to implement it. If they know the team has worked successfully together at another company or another startup, that's really a big plus for the majority of investors. And this can also take the form outside of the founding team. It's possible that there was just a lack of skill in the startup team overall, maybe in the leadership. Let's say they had a lot of technology and accounting know-how, but they lacked skill in sales and marketing. And that can be a reason why a startup is not successful. But it can also go the other way. The combinations are various there. Okay, those are the top 3 reasons why startups fail. Let's look next into why they succeed. And I want to share one quick out-of-the-box idea with you. Because of these risks of failure, and the statistics tell us that there's actually more startups that fail than succeed. That can be a bit discouraging, right? But on the other hand, if a startup really does well, it's not uncommon for that startup to have 1,000 times growth from when they started out with. And that can be very, very interesting. If we can figure out a way to fail fast, even if it's just with some ideas we have, maybe we figure out that the initial idea we had was not the right solution, but we pivot to another idea, and if necessary to a third one, until we find one that actually sticks. People like to have their problem solved that way, and they're willing to pay for it. Then that could actually be the breakthrough that takes you 10x, 100x, 1,000x, and then everything is worth it, right? So this ability to fail fast is something that a lot of startup founders emphasize on, something that's very commonly said in the Silicon Valley, for example, one of the most successful startup hubs we have in the world currently. Okay, so why do tech startups succeed then? Let's look at some of the reasons here. Timing can be a big reason, and it's actually the number one reason. So having the right product at the right time is really valuable. Imagine Tesla had tried building electric cars 20 years ago. It would have been so much harder to try to figure out to build a company based on that back then than it is now, where the consumer understanding and the interest in going that route is much higher. So there are many other examples, like Google kind of failed with timing, I think, a little bit when they launched their Google Glass a few years ago. It's still in use for some production and industrial use cases. But for the consumer, it's not really something that we see a lot currently, and it's not actively being sold. But there are other competitors that are producing products in that market, and maybe we're getting closer to the right timing for that kind of product. And the examples here are really, really various. And it's good to keep that in mind. If you have a startup idea that turns out it's not working right now, doesn't mean it will never work. You may just have to put it on the shelf, and then potentially you can pull it back out 5 years later, 2 years later, 10 years later, depending on what kind of idea it is. Second reason startups succeed is the team and execution. That kind of connects a little bit from the reason number 3 on the first slide. So a strong team is really a big determinant of startup success, but also the way they execute. How efficient are they? How well do they work together? How well do they contribute to the opportunities that they have in the skill set of each other? Because nobody will have all of the skills necessary and the experience and connections necessary to succeed. But as a team, the chance of success goes up significantly. And reason number three why we have success is that it's an idea or truth outlier. So something that really changes the game. Examples would be Amazon when they transitioned for only selling books online to becoming a store for everything kind of online, and people were kind of ready for it. So that's an idea, something that was eventually going to happen, and it's not something that will happen all the time. But if somebody is the first and they solve it well, they can do it at an affordable price, then they can really grab a significant share of the market. So yeah, these opportunities are not easy to find, but as we get more experience, they should become easier to spot. Let's go to the next secret, and that has to do with unexpected sources of transformational funding. So if our startup is low on funding or running the risk of running low on funding, what are some of the things we could do? So when I experienced this first with the startup in 2000, we actually were a little bit surprised by the startup bubble bursting, of course. But right before that, we also had a conversation with a company that was organizing supplies for the Bosch company, like a large institution in Germany. And they sell products internationally. You probably have seen their dishwashers, and they make many other products also in industrial use cases. So this company approached us just because of something they read on a website that we had created in 1999, and kind of put out there that we provide software development services for web-based applications, something like that. So they contacted us and wanted to have a conversation to see if we could develop a web-based app for them that would help them track the supply status of the different companies they worked with in the supply chain, so they could in one place visualize to their customer, to Bosch, where each supply was, if it was on the way, if it was delivered already, and if it was back ordered, all these kinds of statuses. They wanted to move away from a legacy application they had, or maybe some manual spreadsheets, how they were tracking it, to something that's a little bit more modern and web-based. So funny thing for that story is when we had the initial conversation, it was basically just me, 19 years old, and two friends of mine who were in their early 20s that also did web development and design. We kind of met together. And since I didn't have any office space at the time, we just met in the kitchen of the apartment I was living in. Okay, so we were inviting this gentleman from the company that works for Bosch to the kitchen to have a sales conversation. You can think, or you can probably imagine how that was a little bit unusual for him. And yeah, we kind of told him what we did, showed him some examples, kind of did our best sales pitch we could do with the background we had. But he, as a result, because of the unusual environment and everything, he wasn't really sure to move forward with it. Also, because it was a little bit of a larger project, we knew we needed more than one person to solve it, and it would take several months to implement and get right. So we kind of quoted a price that was comparable to 1 year of the salary I had at the time on the last job I had worked in the technology space. And yeah, he was kind of unsure to see if he should commit. But then later on, we joined with a business partner who had more experience in sales and on the business side of things. And he had another conversation with them. And in that conversation, they actually agreed that they would give us a chance. We would get the chance to implement it. And that kind of became our first larger premium customer, I would call it, the one that helped us fund renting our first office space. And yeah, we had a successful product there, successful solution. We had to work hard to get it out the door, but that's okay. That's part of the early launch phase. So that was one unexpected source of funding that I had early on in my journey. And that worked well, even though the tech bubble was bursting, because this company just needed their problem solved and they were willing to pay for it as long as we could give them enough confidence that we would be able to provide the solution and kind of keep them in the loop on the journey. They were fine with giving us that contract. So yeah, one of the maybe a little bit surprising or unexpected sources for a successful startup is the job, either full-time or part-time, that we may currently have to help kind of ensure funding, make sure we can pay our bills while we test our startup idea and work on it on the side, either on our own or with some business partners or friends that are also interested in launching a startup. And this could also take the form of a successful business. Like maybe on the first glance, we would think if we have a full-time job, how would we have time to get ready to do something as complex of launching a startup and testing a startup idea? And of course, that makes it more complicated than working on it full time. But if we're really passionate about doing this and finding a right product market fit for the idea we have, the science shows us that this is actually one of the best things we can do to avoid failure of a startup, because running out of funding is one of the main reasons. It's not the main, but one of the main reasons why startups fail. And then with this strategy, we can also address the reason number one we saw on the first slide, that there was no product market fit. So we can kind of test that early while we still have a working source of funding. And then when the product starts taking off, starts generating revenue and profit, then we can make the transition to part-time job, full-time job, maybe transitioning out of an existing successful business if we have one. So we can kind of focus on the startup. So this kind of risk management is one of the skills that investors also look for. Because if you demonstrate that you have that early on in your startup career, that will be very valuable later on, because risk management is always part of the startup leadership skill that's needed. Okay, the second source of transformational funding, that would be solving a high value problem for a prime customer, and then kind of connects with the idea I shared a few minutes ago. We found a prime customer that was willing to pay us for several months kind of to solve a problem they had. And we had a unique skill set that they couldn't find easily in other places in the market. They were also looking for somebody locally in the city of Hamburg, Germany, ideally, who would be able to solve it for them, since they had an office there. And yeah, the local benefit was a win, but he also could see that the way we had positioned ourselves online and in the conversations, even though the first in-person meeting was a bit edgy, he could tell that we knew what we were talking about and we could actually solve this problem, which we did. So maybe you can find similar opportunities. Maybe you know what kind of problem you want to solve, what type of customer you want to help. Maybe look for creative ways how this kind of customer has problems that are a bit higher value, maybe not the average representation of that customer base, but some that are more like in the premium segment that's willing to pay a higher price, even for example, on a one-on-one basis, or in some cases a small group works as well. If you can take a small group of prime customers through a problem that you're solving with them, that can also be very valuable as a funding source. And if you get this to work, then you are kind of independent of investors, because you can use this as often as you want until you have reached a startup scale that can kind of expand to the next segment of customers that are paying a lower price, but you can serve more of them. And that's kind of what Tesla also did when they launched their first electric car. They went to the high-end market, kind of an electric sports car that cost several $100,000. Most people would never buy a car like that, but there are enough people that are interested to buy a high-end car if it's edgy, if it's something they can show off to their friends because it has some new technology, doesn't need any gasoline. There was no comparable good option around at the time, so they were able to make some decent sales with that unique product, even though there was a lot of manual work involved to get it out the door. And as they solved that, they could then transition to the next level of customer, a little bit lower in the price. And I believe that was the Model S was the next step down. Still a little bit more of a high-end price, but not several $100,000. It was just below $100,000 if it launched, when it launched, if I remembered correctly. Okay, let's go to transformational funding source number 3. If we can figure out an underserved niche in a profitable market, that can also be a great source of funding. And the aspect that the market has to be profitable is kind of important here, because there are a lot of markets where we could find a niche, but maybe it's not profitable. Maybe there's not enough people who are willing to pay for the problem. Maybe the pain for that kind of customer is not high enough. They're willing to separate with some of their dollars or euros to have the problem solved. And there can be a variety of reasons. And the other aspect of this funding source is it has to be a niche in most cases, because if we target like a larger profitable market, there will be so much competition from established players that it's going to be very hard for a startup to do any kind of advertising, to find new customers, search engine optimization, everything like that will be harder. If we find a niche that's not served well and nobody really cares about it, but us, then that's a unique opportunity, and it's a great way to launch a startup successfully. So that's something I encourage you to think about. Hopefully it gave you some ideas. Let's see if we have a funding source number 4, and it looks like we do. So number 4 kind of connects with 3 a little bit. If we have a niche that we focused on and that we decided we are going to go for to help customers, then it's also easier to partner with companies in adjacent markets, because they will see us less of a threat, because we have this focus on this one type of problem that's pretty niche, and there's not a lot of risk for them to see us as a competitor, which will make us much more likely for them to be willing to cooperate with us, partner with us. And that's something that can be super valuable for a startup, to find a good partnership with healthy terms. And of course, there'll always be opportunities for negotiation, but you also need to use wisdom there. If you are like a small startup and you're working with a larger company, you may not be able to call all the shots in the details of the terms, right? Just find something that works well for you, doesn't put too much risk on your startup, and get going in the right direction. And a transformational funding source number 5 is sharing equity in creative ways. this can go the route of sharing equity with founders. So instead of hiring somebody at a high salary because they have the kind of skill that the startup needs to launch successfully, we could give them a significant share of equity. And in some cases, a leadership team member may be okay with no salary initially, which can be great for a startup, or at least a smaller salary that's much smaller than what they would get at a larger established company. So that can be a great way to find some missing skill set in the leadership team. But another creative way is also the crowdfunding route that starts to work pretty good. As many other funding sources, that also has slowed down a little bit, of course, in this season. But there's still action going on, and you can go this route if you have a good story, if you have some skills to tell this story maybe in video form and put it on one of these platforms where crowdfunding is an option. Kickstarter is one of them, but there are a lot of other ones where people can actually buy like legal shares of your company that will grow in value over time. So that's something worth exploring. And another thing I want to point out, a healthy mission for your startup will also be an absolute game changer, because it will not only attract people that are highly skilled and passionate, but it will also increase the retention of the team members that you have. So the chance of somebody sticking with you if waters get a little bit rough is higher if you have a strong mission and something that your team connects with. And it can also be used in combination with crowdfunding. For example, right now, a lot of people care about helping our planet out with global warming risk and things like that. So if you launch any kind of startup with that type of focus, chances are you will find a good number of people that are willing to either invest or become a part of the team because you have that mission that they also feel in their heart. And there are many other causes like that that can be useful to dive into. Okay, I think this is probably good with secret number 3. We can go to the next one, and afterwards, I want to take a short break. So let's see what we have for secret number 4. So number 4 is never compete on price again. So this is one of the mistakes that we made with my first tech startup. We kind of started offering internet connections for business customers. And one problem that these business customers had is that everyone else in the market at the time was offering connections called ADSL, so asynchronous internet connection, meaning the download speed was a lot higher than the upload speed. And if these business customers wanted to send larger email attachments or FTP uploads to a partner, supplier, whatever the case might be, they had to wait forever to get the data to the other side because of these slow upload links that they had. So we found a company we could partner with that would help with the last mile connection of synchronous lines at an affordable price, where these business customers could get connections with the same speed up and down. It wasn't much compared to today's standards, but it was decent, like it was at least 10, 20 times as fast as the services or type of lines that were sold to regular consumers. So there was an attraction there. But on the other side, because of the way this business model worked, it was not too complicated for other people in the internet service provider space to become a partner of the same company you were working with and then kind of compete with us. And pretty soon it was a competition on price, right? You had your prices per type of connection listed online on your website, and then you're comparing with other companies what they have, and you didn't want to be too high, or ideally not high at all than their price, and have an offering that's more attractive, so you get the majority of new customers that are looking for the solution. So that helped us, since we were a little bit on the lower end of the price, it helped us scale. So we got to 100 business customers within a few years, which is pretty amazing for a startup that starts from nothing. But our margins, as a result, were also pretty low. And the only way we could make significant margin or profit was by selling some add-on services to these lines. And that kind of worked okay. It didn't work for the majority of the customers, because if you target for the lowest price, you also oftentimes get the customers that are trying to save money where they can, and they may not be interested in additional features that you may have to offer. But there were some customers that needed additional services, like firewall solutions and such, which we were happy to provide since we had some specialists on the team for that. And it kind of worked, helped us to grow, but it kind of prevented our startup from taking off because we were competing on price, and there was not a ton of profit left at the end of the year after all the expenses were paid. So what can we do to avoid this kind of competition on price? I'm sure many other people who have either launched a startup before or are thinking about it, they know that this can be a real risk. What are some of the steps we can take to avoid that? Let's look at what we have here. So first, it's recognizing that it's a trap, a downward spiral. As we get into this, there'll be other market players coming after us that will try to go even lower in price. And it's going to be a never-ending way down. That's not healthy for anyone, right? There's limitation to how well this could work in the long term. So the solution is choosing a higher path. What could that higher path look like? So instead of competing on price, what could we do to help the customer see more value with what we have to offer and to choose us instead of a competitor? And one key thing to figure out here is what are the most valuable adjacent problems to the core problem that we're trying to solve that our clients are willing to pay for. And we may have to be a little bit creative here to both identify those problems and also to find solutions for it. In some cases, or in most cases, I would say there's research necessary. We need to have one-on-one conversations with these clients. We should probably do some surveys. We can search for surveys that other people and companies have already done online and see what we can find. Do as much market research as we can. And once we have identified some valuable candidates for problems that we can solve, then we can figure out a way to solve that in an efficient way. So we have little effort on our end, but high value on the customer side. So they are actually happy to come to us with their problem, have it solved, and get a way more value than what they pay for us for the solution, because we can sell this additional solution as a package with the core product. For example, the internet connection that I mentioned earlier. We could have like a secure firewall solution with regular network scans or something like that. That gives people peace of mind that their business is safe as they use the internet, which is kind of a new world. And we could have a set of firewall rules that is a little bit standardized and only slightly customized for the needs of the customer. So maybe certain ports need to be open for types of internet traffic, and some, or the majority, can be closed to reduce the risk. And then we have like attack detection running in the firewalls and all these standard tools that most open source firewalls give you. So this would be one example how you can add offering to your product that the customer is willing to pay for. And then suddenly you are not competing on price anymore, because if a competitor wants to do the same thing, they now have to figure out, okay, what kind of firewall should we offer if we want to be on par with that, and how do we get it as secure? So if you are first in a solution like that, you can kind of make a little bit of waves and get ahead in the game. And I wouldn't stop with just one additional product that you add to your core offering. I would probably go with, I don't know, maybe aim for 5. In some cases, maybe as many as 10. And some of the things that you add into your package may be small things that the customer is looking to solve, but they could be very valuable in combination with all of the other things that you have in your package. So just try to come up with a solution that is really so unique that it's no comparison at all anymore to any competitor. And then the sales conversation will become so much easier, because nobody will want to try to figure out all the complexities of what you have worked with the customer to solve here, and then kind of compete with you on price on that. So they will try to stick with their offering, maybe go just for the lowest price and try to find as many customers as they can with that. But our package price will help us find higher level customers, people that are happier, tell other friends they have about it, and the word of mouth opportunity is also much larger with this kind of a package solution. Yeah, so the way we solve these kinds of customer problems at scale kind of depends on how we can make it easy to implement with less effort on our end, but high value for the customer. One option that works pretty well is to have like some educational content that you produce that is unique to the needs of the customer, that you kind of give them as part of the package deal. It may also involve some blueprints or checklists that help the customer solve a certain kind of problem, something that's very specific to the need, and that you give them after they purchase your package, something that will be hard for somebody else to replicate, especially in the package deal that you have. And that way you can, once you produce, it will take some effort, of course, to produce the initial checklist, the blueprint, but once you have that ready, it kind of scales nicely. You just have to send it to the customer after they purchase, and everybody is happy, right? The customer gets the value, and you get a decent price for your package. So another piece of advice here that's kind of pretty important. I think the package price should not be on par with the value we're providing. So the value should be significantly higher. I would say at least 5x value compared to the price that we're asking for, so that we get the most benefit for the customer out of this. And yeah, if you want to learn more about how to do this well, the best book I currently know on this topic is the $100 Million Offers book from Alex Hormozi. It's not targeted at tech startups, but you can apply most of the principles to the tech startup worlds. You may have to modify them a little bit. And you can actually buy this book for 99 cents on Amazon. So there's no good reason to not get it right now, because it has extremely high reviews, very valuable, one of the best books I read in a long time. I highly encourage you to get that one. Okay, yeah, I think this is a good point for a short break. Let me see if we have any questions in the chat that I can address before we head a little deeper into the topic here. Just take some minutes. Have to check a few different platforms, and yeah, we should know soon what things look like. I hope you're having a good day so far. If you have something you're thinking about right now, just put it in the chat, and we'll try to get to it either right now or later when we review it. We'll also look at comments that are added after this video live broadcast ends, and we'll try to answer them, check them periodically every day to try to help you solve some of the specific challenges that you are overcoming currently with your startup. So looks like right now we don't have any active questions or comments that I've seen. If I missed any, I apologize, and I'll try to fix that later as I review the comments after the live broadcast. But yeah, we also need to focus on giving people a good live experience. So let's go to the next topic, which is kind of bonus content. I think what we went over so far would already be an amazing foundation to double the chance of success for your startup. So I encourage you to think about those, think about how you can apply them, and yeah, put them into practice, because that's really the thing that changes things. Try some things. Ideally, find team members, partners that are willing to hold you accountable. You can discuss when you get stuck, solving some of these. There are a lot of online forums you can join for startup founders where you can also ask for advice on certain specifics. But a lot of startup success, I would say about 80%, has to do with mindset, a mindset of not giving up, of trying to figure things out, solving challenges, and yeah, being creative, being resourceful, not trying to do everything on your own, but accepting help from others, asking for help. That would be a big game changer in the outcome of the startup. So a bonus topic I wanted to briefly review is how can we overcome hindrances in the growth of a business or startup. So some people have this question that, or this concern that if they desire for the business to grow, let's say beyond the point of being able to pay all of the bills of the startups and to pay all the employees, is that wrong? Should we desire that? And there can be many different causes of this kind of question. For example, the company I grew up in, Germany, there's a little bit of an underlying perspective that people that are entrepreneurs, that have their own company, they make all the money and they only give little to the employees. And because of that, a lot of entrepreneurs are being looked down on a little bit. And that can, of course, be something that the entrepreneur takes in. I don't think that's a true perspective of what the entrepreneur does, because they're providing jobs for a lot of people, especially in the long term. They are also helping solve problems of society, which is extremely important. And it's okay to receive payment for that, because it can help you with scale and can help you reach even more customers and solve their problems. So whether this desire for more business growth is good or bad kind of depends on what kind of business you're in. Honestly, there are some businesses that would be bad if they are expanded. Like I don't know. Like there are some current examples. Like if I'm in the business of selling something to a customer that is kind of sold well, but doesn't give them a real solution to a problem they have. They kind of get a little thing that didn't cost me much to create, but the customer, what they get for, they actually not really happy with it. Maybe they say, okay, this is something, maybe it helps me a little bit, but it's far lower value than what I paid for. And they will probably talk online about it, talk to their friends about the bad experience, and you will have bad word of mouth going on, which is not healthy in the online world, right? It's really valuable if you have good feedback, but bad feedback can backfire fast and can slow down the growth of a startup. So we want to try to avoid that. And the solution here is to have a business. And if you have a business that currently has a little bit of a bad focus, that's not a problem, because you can always shift the focus and shift it in a way that actually contributes to society and helps people. And if you have a business like that, or you have shifted your original solution more in that direction, then healthy business growth will actually be something desirable for everyone in society, including your team, your employees, and they'll be more motivated to come to the job every morning and to work hard to kind of solve the different challenges that are going on in the day-to-day business. Yeah, so hopefully this kind of, if you have this concern, this helps you overcome that a little bit. Not necessarily saying that the majority of people have this concern, but it's a good percentage of the startup founding population, I would say, especially in the beginning. If it's your first startup, you may have a little bit of a concern, or maybe you have a lot of friends or relatives that would advise you to not do this entrepreneurship thing, to not launch a startup, but rather work like a steady job. And as I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with a steady job. Just work that to pay the bills. And if you can get a promotion, or if you can be hired by a company that pays you more, that's great, especially if it's a job with a good work-life balance. So you can still have some hours available on the weekends, in the mornings, after hours, whatever works best for you, to start testing your startup idea and getting it ready for launch. Because if we are in the startup business and really passionate about it and wanting to do something that transforms the world, most startup founders will work more than 40 hours a week, right? Like the statistics are in the area of 70 to 80 hours a week on average. I'm not saying this is healthy in a sustained manner on the long term, but for an initial launch phase, that can be necessary in some cases. And oftentimes during a crisis, that may also be what it takes to come out of it. intact and on the better side of things. So why not practice putting in a high number of hours, while working a regular 40, 45-hour, 50-hour job, and then working on your startup on the side. So you have this concern of your friends or family addressed, but at the same time, you're also testing your idea and making progress to launching your startup successfully. Okay, so in the case that our business causes more harm than good, then we should, of course, make adjustments, as I said earlier. And I think it makes a lot of sense. There are only positives to this. So what are some other hindrances that we could have to business growth? Some people have, especially startup founders, they may have a hesitancy to sell a product to people, especially on the one-on-one basis. They may be okay with putting something on a website and an app where somebody selects something and then they get presented with a purchase option, subscription option, whatever, and they buy it. That may be easier for them to do than having a conversation with a person and saying, if you want this problem solved, this is the price we could do it for. Would you be willing to buy it? That was a little bit harder for me in the beginning as well, because I had I actually didn't have zero experience with sales, now that I think about it, but I didn't have experience with the kind of sales we were doing. The kind of sales I did as a teenager was selling poultry and eggs to people in the neighborhood, with a farmer who was kind of driving a little truck through the neighborhood with product inside, and we kind of open the door and sell some of his product. So that was a good sales experience that probably helped me some with the startup launch, but I still had a lot of concerns selling. Oftentimes it felt wrong to do it. It didn't feel good to ask for a certain price. A lot of things I had to overcome. So if you have a question like this, here are some of the things that might help you. So if the people that you are offering the product to, if they are better off after they bought a product or server or service, then we are actually serving them by selling it to them, right? Then it would be better for them to buy it. So why should we feel bad about offering it to them? Because it's actually all part of serving people. If we gave everyone this solution for free, we wouldn't have the resources to give it to very many people, because we would run out of funding very soon. But if we sell it to the customer at a reasonable price, that helps us to sustain our business, keep our costs in check, and also have some money left over to find new customers, to do some advertising and marketing. Then we're actually helping more people as the bottom line, and this the sales step becomes a service to even more people. So very valuable and useful. So there's this saying, the greatest leader is the servant of all. And I think this applies very well to this area as well. Some of the greatest salespeople I know are amazing servants. So this is definitely true. And it's something to aspire to and to learn from. How can we serve our customers more? How can we serve them better? That's one of the best questions to ask if you find more value opportunities for problems the customer has that we could potentially solve with a creative solution. Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this marketing reach a little bit already. So if we receive a revenue from the product we sell, then we can reach more people and help them. So that's really valuable. Now let's also take this to a little bit of another level. And this may be a little bit of a big step up, but I think it's fair to say that in some cases we have a moral obligation to sell the product, because if it really helps people, why should we hide it? There's so many benefits to making it available to them. There's no reason we should hold it back. And a lot of us think in the beginning, if we build it, they will come, but that's not really the truth. That's why it says here, if we build it, they won't come in most cases. Like, we got really lucky in the beginning when we just put out a website saying, hey, we do web development services, and a company like a supplier of or a partner with the Bosch concern was actually reaching out to us. That doesn't happen every day. It only happens in unique phases of the internet development of a new market, where there's kind of high demand and low supply. in some pockets. And there are still those opportunities out there, but you kind of need to be a little bit creative to find them. So in most cases, we have to use some kind of advertising or free content that attracts potential customers so they can then become more interested in potentially buying another product from us. So that's why we have that moral obligation to sell. And we also have the obligation to help people find it, because if this service really makes their life better, their business better, helps them keep a business when they otherwise might lose it, it's also our obligation to help them find it and find good ways to do it. Like if they enter a search in Google or YouTube or whatever platform they use, what can we do so they find the solution there? And instead of just being led to a video or some kind of content that doesn't really help them, why don't we provide a solution and figure out how we can get it ranked so they can find it on these platforms and actually benefit from it, and then experience what it's like to receive value from us as a company. So then later on, when we reach out to them again, they might be ready to pay something for a higher level product that solves an even more expensive problem for them. Yeah, and I mentioned this earlier, the most successful sales team members are great servants. If you research this a little bit, you'll see it. Some of the ones I know, they actually have seeking to serve in the footer of the email. So that's a good desire to have as a startup founder, as a sales team member, and have somebody who engages at least every now and then in the sales process. So I encourage you to consider that. Then also wanted to review briefly, what can we do to increase our impact in marketing? What are some of the creative ways we can look at to go a little deeper here? So the foundation of any marketing effort is, of course, always market research. We want to figure out how can we adjust or improve our product, and the market research will tell us that. There may be public sources available that a simple Google search will provide for you, but in many cases you may also have to do some research on your own, like have real conversations with real customers, and also do some surveys on your own. If you have some kind of mailing list, send it out, maybe offer some rewards for people filling out a survey, because it takes time out of their calendar and most people need an incentive to actually do that. And there are some companies that pay $100 or even a few $100 for you if you fill out a survey, if it really answers important questions they have. So why not figure out something that is valuable for your customer? And if you don't have a lot of dollars to put up there as a reward, you can always offer like a one-on-one coaching or consulting session with one of the leadership team members of your startup, and kind of explain to them why that would be really valuable to a customer. And that way you have an interesting incentive, but you don't have to put a lot of money up front. And in that conversation, you may even discover new opportunities. In that consulting engagement, you might even discover new opportunities for solutions you can potentially provide further down the road. Yeah, so the strategy I mentioned a little bit earlier, narrowing down our marketing focus on the people we can help the most, that will make a lot of things easier, especially in marketing and advertising. The more broadly we advertise, the more expensive it is. The more narrow we advertise, the lower is the advertising cost and the higher the chance of somebody actually responding to our marketing. So the cost per click, the cost per customer acquisition, all of that goes down if we have a more narrow focus. This is something really important for marketing, and one of the reasons why it's important for a new startup to pick a niche where they can serve people well. And then once you have a success in that niche, you can always expand to the next level or to an adjacent niche or market. But getting that first ownership established for your company is really important. And it's so much easier to do it in a niche than in a larger market where you already have established players. Yeah, so the marketing message becomes more cost effective. I mentioned this already. We can reach more people, we can increase our revenue, more funds for future marketing campaigns are available, which also results in more people being helped. So a great bottom line, that connects with our mission again, helping people. And yeah, figure out what's most important for your startup. What are the key values you want to stand for as a company and also as a culture as you build your startup team, as you hire new team members further down the road? What are some of the things you want to focus on? And it's good to do this as a team building session, get everyone you have currently on a team in a room, or everyone you have as potential startup founders, and try to figure out what you want to focus on here, what you want to set as a foundation for the new venture that you're building together. That can be a great motivator, especially as you integrate values from different angles, things that are important to different people. A more diverse set of values will be more attractive to future candidates that might join your team as well. And then we want to determine what marketing efforts actually work best. And every time you have something like that, it's good to focus on it and scale it up, because that doesn't come around all the time. Usually in marketing and advertising, you have to test a lot of things, a lot of variations of text and ads and different platforms to advertise on. And when you find something that actually works really good, has a good price for customer acquisition or conversion, then it's good to focus on it and scale that way. Yeah, so brief overview of what we covered here. We first went over why startups fail and why they succeed. We looked at the unexpected sources of transformational funding, and also went over how to avoid competing on price ever again. So I hope you enjoyed this content. I'll do one last check if we have any questions, and then we can kind of close on the session of the first day. And I look forward to sharing again tomorrow, where we go over the proven method that I kind of developed over the years on how to survive not just the current crisis we may be in, but kind of any crisis that may be thrown at your startup. So I look forward to sharing that with you. And yeah, also appreciate any questions you have about that, any specific concerns, things you want to see covered. Feel free to let us know. You can also always reply to our emails if you are on the email list already. If not, please go to techstartuplaunch.com and quickly sign up there. And then you will get a confirmation email that you can reply to with a question if you have one. And we'll try to address as many as we can, because our desire is really to help startup founders. We believe startup founders are a wonderful force in society for innovation that's very much needed. And we're very, very thankful that you're doing what you're doing. And yeah, we look forward to helping more of you in the future, of course. So let me do a quick check on the chat here, see if I find any quick questions I can answer. Looks like we're good for now, at least on the sites I've checked so far. Good for now. Yeah, feel free to add more questions if you watch this later. Like I said earlier, we'll have either myself or somebody from the team review some of your questions and answer as many as we can. We look forward to helping you and look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the training. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.